the Defence Secretary, Grant Shapps, back to Mark in just a moment. Mr. Shapps, Defence Secretary, of course, talking to us from the NATO headquarters. Good to see you this morning. Thank you for joining us on the programme. Heartbreaking stuff that we're seeing day after day after day from the aftermath of what these Hamas murderers did. Are you concerned over the proportionality of the Israeli response?
Morning, Kate. Well, I just don't think there's any equivalence here at all. You've just seen and heard in your report about what appears to have happened. There are further reports through of babies being butchered, boys potentially being beheaded. These are not just gunmen or militants, as I see some news organisations reporting, not yours. These are terrorists who have gone out and slaughtered people, seemingly for the sake of murder and killing. And so I just don't think there's any equivalence at all. Israel has the perfect right to defend itself and must defend itself against these terrorists.
What about the fact that Gaza is presently under siege, no water, no electricity, no food for the citizens there?
Well, look, I mean, first of all, Hamas are the people to blame. They are a proscribed organisation in Britain, meaning they're illegal in Britain. It's illegal to support them as well. When it comes to Gaza, they, I think, are not representative of the Palestinian people more broadly, but Israel does need to do some things. For example, they've only just managed to seal the border again from where these Hamas terrorists came, and so they'll need to take a number of steps in order to deal with that. But there is no equivalence, as I say, and people who suggest that there is just aren't looking at the facts. You know, you've just seen in your own report the way that Hamas have indiscriminately murdered in a terrorist manner women, children, Holocaust survivors who survived the Nazis and then killed by Hamas. When Israel counter, on the other hand, they are trying to give warnings. They do what is called a knock and drop. They let people know if a particular area is going to be attacked. And as I say, Israel have the right to defend themselves, particularly given the extreme extremities of what we've seen and the disgusting behaviour of Hamas, who are just pure and simple terrorists.
But I'm hearing from the EU and also some UN comments that Israel is breaking international law by not allowing civilians in Gaza to have access to food and to heat and to water. What would you say in response to that?
Well, I just say, look, this very early days, they've had to seal the border because, for obvious reasons, because Hamas terrorists have just murdered indiscriminately in terrorist fashion a lot of Israelis. I read this morning 1,200 and many, many others harmed, and that number injured, and that number is bound to rise still. So, we in the United Kingdom absolutely defend Israel's right to do what they need to do now to go after Hamas. Of course, they need to respect international law, and my conversations with Israelis, we've, of course, talked about all of that. But as I say, I think that some of this is a bit of a distraction from the reports still coming through, including the potential that babies have been beheaded and festival goers were slaughtered in their hundreds, as we now know is factually true.
Sorry, what is the distraction?
I say that the difference between the, people who are trying to sort of say there's some sort of equivalence between the two, I think are entirely wrong. When you have terrorists who go out and slaughter festival goers, murder babies, that is entirely different.
I'm just asking you, if I may, please, Mr. Shapps, about the innocent civilians who are in Gaza, and I wonder what the British government's reaction is to them, because of course both sides have innocent civilians. We've seen what's happened, very much illustrated here on Sky News by Stuart Ramsey's report, but of course innocent civilians in Gaza as well. Do you have a word for them?
Yeah. Well, no, look, what I'm saying is, and the British government, by the way, hasn't withdrawn support from Palestinians, and we do that through the UN. So the British government is playing its part. I suppose, Kay, the point I'm trying to make is the objective of the Hamas terrorists was to go after innocent civilians, and that is what they have done in their hundreds even thousands. That's not the objective of Israel, which is specifically trying to go after the terrorists. And now we know in war there can be damage beyond in this case, the terrorists. But that is not their objective, which is why I say there's no equivalence between the two.
OK, understood. Eliminating Hamas, where do we draw the line? At what cost?
Well, look, as I say, I think it's very early days. Hamas have shown a total and utter disrespect for British lives, and you've just seen it in that report. I think it is absolutely understandable that the state of Israel would want to eliminate that terrorist organisation, given that they have demonstrated, a bit like it's been referred to as being similar to ISIS, where they have absolutely no respect whatsoever for human life, even babies. And the elderly, and so as I say, the British government stands four square behind Israel's right to defend itself, and that is quite proper and correct.
Yeah, but at what cost is eliminating Hamas? At whatever cost.
Well, I mean, there's no. If this was the UK under attack, no one would stand by and say, there's a limit to how many of the enemies should be destroyed. It cannot be right to have a terrorist organisation in your midst who are prepared to do things of this sort of disgusting level. And so, Israel will clearly wish to go out and deal with Hamas. And I think they feel that they should do that once and for all. They will go out their way to protect civilians whilst doing that. And that's why it's very different when, for example, what they call a knock and drop operation happens, where they provide a warning in advance before bring down a building, for example. It's very different from going into a kibbutz, the stories that you just said, or going into a music festival, or going into people's homes and children's bedrooms and murdering people.
Yeah, I'm a mother. I hear you. But when you say once and for all, does that mean there's no limit when it comes to eliminating Hamas?
Well, look, you're asking me to define exactly what the extent of getting rid of terrorists should be, and I'm afraid I can't do that for you. What I can say is I think that Israel have the perfect right to eliminate these terrorists who've shown that they have absolutely no limitations in their primeval behaviour. OK, two-state solution. Is that still possible? Well, look, it is still the British policy. I completely accept that what's happened this week has set that back, and that is a shame, not least for the Palestinian people who have, are not, by and large, supporters of Hamas and have had their cause and their concerns set back in a very significant way by people acting in their name and carrying out indiscriminate attacks of this nature.
Final question. You are a politician, but you're also a human being and you're a father. How has what has happened in Israel over the last few days impacted on you?
I mean, I feel sickened by what's happened. I've spoken to Israeli ministers, and they've described things which I'm not even going to repeat on air, because the scale of what's happened and the barbarity with which it's happened has been absolutely horrendous. And you heard in the report there about children being hidden in cupboards and under beds in order to try, often unsuccessfully, to protect their lives. Any parent hearing about what's happened this last few days will feel absolute revulsion and disgusted. And for communities back home, the Jewish community back home, in fact all communities back home, the British government and the police are very much on the side of making sure that calm is maintained and that communities are helped to feel safe. And that's one of the reasons why the Prime Minister, for example, went and addressed a synagogue on Monday night to express his concern and his solidarity and support.
Grant Shapps, thank you.